What's up, guys? I'm glad to be back. I got Zach Owen, Olayinka Famadou, and our special guest of the evening, the Nick Chuma. Now, I've known Nick for, oh man, it's probably been 10 years at least. And it was funny how we first met because in elementary school, Nick moved into our area and he ended up sitting next to me on the school bus in like fifth or sixth grade. And pretty much ever since then, we've had a phenomenal bond and a phenomenal friendship. So, guys, how are we doing today? How's our weeks going? Let's hear it.
Doing fantastic. I've had a great week. Getting kind of some of the wedding stuff. I'm getting married in November. I've know I said that a lot on this podcast lately, but getting some of those plans wrapped up and ready to go. Yinka, what about yourself?
Well, first I'll continue saying it because that's an amazing achievement. That's awesome. Yeah, no. So I just actually came back from Miami, as you guys know, was in the Standard Experience Miami. Had a great time, and some of our listeners will see we'll be posting a lot of that content here pretty soon. But no, I'm just trying to recoup and get back on schedule. And actually, I'm preparing to drive back to school for my last year this coming Sunday. So just came back from a trip, and I'm already like planning for my next long trip. Obviously, going to be at school for the whole semester. But yeah, how about yourself, Nick?
Well, first of all, congrats, Zach, on the wedding coming up, man. I know there's a lot of planning preparation that goes into that.
Oh, yeah.
Yinka, I was actually just down in Fort Lauderdale, Miami, the back half of last week as well, doing some content.
Oh, okay.
So
that's awesome.
We could have ran into each other, maybe not, but
maybe.
Yeah, just staying busy, with the business, everything going on, really. Actually been doing more content today and through the rest of this week, and I'm going to be in Jamaica all next week. Finally getting a little breather from the business side of things. So trying to make sure everything's taken care of beforehand.
Absolutely. Rest and relaxation is very important, especially when you're firing at a high level like Nick is. So, Nick, I want you to give us and give the listeners kind of a high level overview of yourself and kind of how you got to where you are right now.
Yeah. So, just kind of backtracking, I'll go into some detail here, but like probably majority of kids our generation is graduate high school and you grow up and the only thing you've been told is like you got to go to college to be successful. Kind of like we were talking about prior to, I was always good at math growing up. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to go to school for finance and accounting. And my freshman year, went through my whole freshman year of college at Ashland University. And, once I kind of got into some of those accounting classes, that's when I realized like this maybe isn't quite for me. And I was actually going to transfer to Bowling Green State University. And I was like, I'll just finish out my finance degree there. Met one of my friends, now my longtime friends, through Bowling Green State University. And he had an internship with American Income Life, financial services life insurance company. Introduced me. I needed a job over the summer before my sophomore year started. So I started working there. And before my sophomore year of college ever started, I actually ended up dropping out of school and never really looked back from there. So been in sales pretty much little over 5 years now. And, anybody who's been in sales, I think, it's maybe a little bit slower start until you learn the basics between communication, there's mindset. I think the thing that I love most about the company was like the culture aspect. And also they have systems and processes in place to where you don't have to come up with stuff on your own. It's not really trial and error. It's more of just kind of like school. Right. So that's what was appealing to me at the time, since I dropped out of college for it, was more of the aspect of, okay, instead of studying for a good grade, I'm going to study and I'm going to get a good paycheck. Right. The more I studied, the more I practiced, the more I learned, it was the higher my paycheck got. So I kind of realized that quickly and really took that student mentality from high school and college and applied that to the business side. Like I said, had a slow start the first 6 months, and then something clicked where I was just kind of realizing like, if I am going to be doing this as my career, like I got to take this serious. I couldn't really be going out and partying as much as I was with like my college friends from back in the day. So that's really when I started to buckle down and take things a lot more serious. And that's when things really just took like a 180 turn for me. Pretty much from there, I think my second full year in the business, I ended up like number 23 in the entire company out of over 10,000 representatives for producing. And then the following years, when I stepped into leadership and management, really started working on building my team, building relationships, developing other people. And I think really at this point in my career, like, I think there's always room for improvement and growth. But I always like to tell my team, like, I'm good regardless financially. Like, my bills are paid. Like, the thing that keeps me driving, keeps me motivated on a day-to-day basis is helping my people. Like, I guess what the company's been able to do for me up to this point, I love seeing people come in from where they've started 6 months, 12 months, 2 years into the business, and just seeing their lives completely change for the better.
Absolutely, 100%. So I think there's two big takeaways from what Nick just said. Number one, and it's something that we talk a lot about both here in FLI, like on the podcast, but also in our social media content, is that you need to increase your income. And both Nick and I can attest to this, that sales is the number one way to increase your income because you get paid based on how much work you put in and how much you produce. Number two is the leadership aspect and the culture. So it's funny to think about, people like Ed Milet, Patrick Bet David, like some of the best motivational speakers and content producers that we all listen to. They were in the insurance type, they were in the sales type world. So they experienced not only how sales can increase your income, but also how leadership in those type of industries are driven home by companies that have that type of culture. So the big focus we want to have from this episode today is something that's called mind, body, spirit. And this is something that both Nick and everyone in his company embodies to the T. So Nick, can you give us an overview of what mind, body, spirit is and how you apply that to your daily life?
Yeah. So to be honest with you, I had no idea about mind, body, spirit until I started with the company. And that's really kind of when I started to get introduced. I saw a lot of people having success in the business, whether they were, a personal producer, or whether they were on the leadership or management side of things. But really, when I kind of got introduced to mind, body, spirit was like when I decided to take that leap into management. And a lot of it too, I don't know if you guys have read like the 5 levels of leadership, like John Maxwell, all his book, he's got great leadership books. So you guys may or may not know about the law of the lid. Right. So when I stepped into management and leadership, that's where mind, body, spirit really came into play, because it's like if I'm going to grow and manage a team of individuals underneath me, I don't want to hinder their progress. Meaning, if I'm not growing, it's hard for the people that I'm leading to grow as well. Well, on the flip side, right, if I'm pouring into my mind, reading books, listening to podcasts, watching videos, and really taking in good, valuable knowledge that I can apply to my day-to-day life, body side of things, right? Health is wealth. I think we all know that it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter how quickly you do it. At the end of the day, if you're not healthy, none of that stuff matters because you're not able to enjoy anything. And then really the spirit side of things too. Like I grew up Christian Orthodox, not pressing religion on anybody whatsoever, but kind of got away from that. I guess once I got into like high school and college side of things, but really the spirit side of things more in terms of like faith. Right? Having faith that everything does happen for a reason, whether you maybe don't realize it in the moment, it may click next week. It may click 6 months from now or 2 or 3 years from now. It's like, wow, if I didn't go through that situation, I wouldn't be able to handle this, or I wouldn't be where I'm at today. So I really I took that to heart in the aspect of I start every single day off with mind, body, spirit. Right? Especially for the body side of things. If you start your day off with a workout and you're pushing yourself as hard as you can go in the gym to start your day, the way I look at it is like, I've got the hardest thing done. It's done, out of the way. Like, I don't care what you throw at me. I don't care what happens today. Like, I've already conquered my day in my eyes. And then same thing on the mind side of things. Like, if you get yourself mentally in the right mindset or in the right mental place, a lot of times if people, I guess on the flip side, aren't pouring into their mind, body, and spirit, something small can happen and it just like triggers people. Or you guys maybe too have seen like, if an event outside, like completely outside of somebody's control happens, like there's nothing you could have done to control whether or not that was going to happen to you. It's like they just let it ruin the rest of their day. But that's why I think it's so important to start your day off on the right note. Start your day off challenging and pushing yourself the most, because that's where you're going to get the most growth out of whatever you're doing the rest of your day. But going back to the management and leadership side of things, like I said, at the end of the day, I know if I'm not growing myself, I know if I'm not pushing myself, it's harder for the people that I'm leading, both in management and also just starting with the company. it's hard for them to grow. Right. So I know that ultimately, like, as a leader, the higher up that you go, yes, the income does increase, but guess what? So does responsibility. And a lot of that responsibility comes with growing yourself mentally, spiritually, physically. So that way, ultimately, the people underneath you can grow as well.
You know, I love what you added there. And I think so I can, not only myself, but also our audience get some more clarity. Is this more of like the company talks about it and for managers to tap into it? And so it's more of an individual basis. And if it's not an individual basis, how does the company kind of not enforce, but how do they, cultivate that culture, whether they put on certain events for, the employees, or they do things for you guys to cultivate that culture. What does the company do?
Yeah, so I think they really embody that just with the aspect of ultimately, like I said, in the companies all throughout the US and Canada, but like I know our agency specifically that I've started with and I've been ever since I've started in the business, like we focus a lot on developing leaders, developing people in management who really want to grow teams and grow other individuals. And kind of going back to what I was just talking about, ultimately it's hard to grow a team, grow other people if you can't grow yourself. So I really think in terms of like we use GroupMe a lot for communication, especially in a virtual world now. So like in the morning, my entire team GroupMe board, like gym pictures, maybe it's Proverbs verses, maybe
awesome.
Maybe it's a motivational video. Like everybody is just posting up their MBS to start out the day. So like maybe if you're having a bad day, you see like 5, 10, 15, 20 other people posting something up. And it's like, okay, like it also that kind of comes into the competitive nature side of things too. It's like, well, I'm not going to let this person over here outwork me.
Oh, 100%. And, even to a small degree, we even do that a little bit with FLI. We have a Snapchat group chat.
Yeah.
And we're posting, I love how Sean puts his quotes. I love how Zach, up like he follows the quotes or the image of me in the gym, whatever, with like a little text in the group chat. We have a small degree of that in FLI. I can see how that could just really bring out the best in people. Even again, when one person's having a bad day, they see that healthy competition and want to join in. I love that.
Yeah, that's a very healthy
that accountability factor too.
Yeah. And I think like when I first started hearing about this whole MBS side of things, when I started into the leadership and management side of things, it was like, I understood it, but I wasn't necessarily bought in at that point. Right. And then over time, seeing people post things up, and it's not even on GroupMe. Like I see it over people's social media, gym pictures, sharing Proverbs verses, sharing motivational videos or quotes. And it's like, it started to really click like, okay, all the people doing the MBS are the ones having success in the industry and in this business. And it's not like I have to make anything up on my own. It's a copy and paste business. If I do what they do and say what they say, I'm going to have success too. It's just a matter of when it clicks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. That's a very good quote. What is it? You show me your friends and you show me your future, right? The people you surround yourself with. Sean mentioned kind of the competitive nature of that as well. If I heard this quote, if you live with, say 5 guys, and these 5 guys, are constantly working out, and they say they do 20 push-ups every so often, you're not going to be the one guy who doesn't do push-ups, right?
Yeah.
Just the people you surround yourself with and the energy you surround yourself with, you're naturally going to follow. And Nick, I had another question for you, as far as kind of the mind-body mentality. Have you read the book Eat That Frog?
I have not.
Looping back a little bit, you mentioned the whole, getting the hardest thing out of the way first in the day. And there's a couple different mentalities people can take with this. And the book Eat That Frog is all about getting more of the important things done today and doing the harder things first. Like you mentioned, if you do the hardest thing first, the rest of your day is downhill. But that really depends on who you are personally and what you like to do. I know Sean likes to kind of flip the script there, and he always likes to get the small things done out of the way, because then you're building that momentum, checking things off. A couple hours into your day, you got 10 items checked off because they were easy. And then you're, building up momentum to crash through kind of the harder things later. So, that's a great book. It kind of combines the mind-body mentality, the health, and just something I wanted to stress for listeners for sure.
I want to add something to that really quickly. So reading the book Traction, Sean, I want to tell you, because obviously you finished the book and I think Zach's tapping into it. Just really quick, a little quick digression. It's funny because I'm now in the chapter that's really diving deep into rocks, right? And when they talk about rocks, they actually put a visual to, where this stems from. And I saw this on TikTok where it was this professor. I don't know if it was the author of the book or whoever it was, but this professor had like a jar, right? And he symbolized it by putting, I think, water first, and then sand first, or then sand second, and then marbles. And then now the big rocks, they couldn't fit into the jar. But when you did the inverse, where you put the rocks first, and then you did the marbles, and then you did the sand, and then you did the water, everything fit perfectly, right? So I'm going with Zach, and I'm trying to quote, I'm joking, but doubling up on Zach or on Sean. When you get the hardest thing done, the rocks, right, back into the traction book, the EOS model. When you get the rocks done first, let's say it's fitness, or let's say it's a giant project, or let's say it's an important meeting. You get the most important things done first. All the little things, they'll fall in place. They'll fall in place. But yes, making your bed in the morning first, Sean, will always be the number one thing you should be doing.
Yep, absolutely. And it's, I guess, my thought process from that, I see it from like my full-time job type of thing. Like when I get requests from engineers and I know that it's an easy request that I can do in 5 minutes, I do that first so I can prioritize my response time to them.
Right.
So I guess that's kind of how I see it. And I understand that doing big things first is definitely important. And I know Nick agrees on the big things first too. So I don't say that I'm fully against it, because there are some times that I will do the big things first. It just depends on the situation, you know?
Yeah,
I think
100%.
I think everybody's a little bit different as well. Just to kind of backtrack a little bit too, like Sean, like you just mentioned, if something pops up in the middle of my day, like I normally have my schedule jam packed like every 15, 30 minutes. So if something does come up and it's like, okay, I can get this knocked out in 5 minutes, I'm going to do it right then and there. If it's not urgent and it's going to take more than 5 minutes, I'm going to add it to my schedule at some point. But a lot of times too, and I think we can all agree on this, like people maybe who aren't in that business owner mentality, who aren't focused on the MBS or growth a lot of times, like, and I'm not pointing anybody out specifically, but like in the 9 to 5 mentality, like I can't wait to get off work so I can relax and just enjoy the evening and go hang out with friends or whatever. Those are the people who aren't trying to necessarily get more out of the future. And those are the individuals where maybe sometimes I would say they're distracting to me personally. And that's part of the reason too. I know a lot of my bigger tasks or my harder tasks are going to take more time, more focus, more energy. That's part of the reason why I try and knock that out first thing in the morning. Like if I knock out my MBS by 7 a.m., I have from like 7 to 9, a 9 to 5er. I have from 7 to 9, 2 hours to get a lot of my big tasks done, where I don't have the distractions with social media, people texting me, people calling me, and I've already got that stuff done. That way, by the time things are popping up or unexpected things per se, a lot of my smaller tasks maybe have more flexibility with that stuff that comes up.
And I think that's what's great about this MBS system that I'm very much learning, and I want to actually tap deeper in, is because, again, as a leader myself, when you cultivate, again, as an individual now, all these skills for yourself on your own individual journey with your MBS, now all those skills that you've attained now can come into your career, into your business. Discipline, integrity, tenacity, all these kinds of things can now, you formulated them as an individual with your MBS system, and now brought them into your career. So now you're even a stronger leader in your career field. And I love that. I love that system. It's great. And it sounds motivating. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And the cool thing that you'll see over time too is like I was talking to you guys about, is I didn't learn about the MBS until I started in my business. So I started the whole MBS side of things for the business. But the cool thing about seeing it over the last 5 years is it's translated into other areas of my life, aside from professional, personally, with relationships, with family, like all kinds of aspects. The MBS really, aside from helping you be better in business and be better like at growing your business or whatever you're trying to do, it really translates into every part of life personally. Like I said, as small as, even if you like have the day off and you're not doing anything business, if you have your MBS done, somebody says something happens, instead of letting that small thing ruin the rest of your day where it was completely outside of your control, if you're on top of your MBS and you're like in the right mindset and the right mindset or mentality per se, you're not going to let that stuff affect you. It's like, I couldn't really change that outcome anyway.
And I think too, the big thing that I've taken away so far from what you've said about MBS is how basically it ties into a routine. Your routine allows you to have control of your day, which even when things that you can't control happen, you still feel like you have control of what happens after it. Because you know in your mind that, listen, I'm in a good position based on what I've already done today, but also what I've done for the past year, multiple years by living this mentality. So I guess, can you kind of walk us through our daily routine and what you do to not only give yourself a competitive advantage, but also how you can show the people on your team how, a successful person acts and what their routine is like?
Yeah. So in terms of the routine, normally I'm getting up like 5:30, and I'll grab some breakfast. And that's normally when I'm doing like my Proverbs. And then maybe I'm reading a chapter or so out of whatever book it is. A lot of times it's leadership side of books. I don't know if you guys have heard of David Goggins. That's more like a mentality side of books. So I'll read, I'll dive into some David Goggins books as well. But I normally knock out my like mind and spirit side of things while I'm eating my meal before I head to the gym. And then as soon as my mind and spirit side is done, I'm heading to the gym and I'm listening to some sort of podcast. And then once I get to the gym, that's when I'll turn on some pump up music. But by the time I'm done with the gym, it's 7 a.m., maybe 7:30 if I'm running a little behind schedule or something. But like my MBS is done before a majority of people are up working a 9 to 5 job. So like a lot of that stuff's out of the way. And then just posting up pictures in the gym. Like I said, we use GroupMe for communication through Teams. So like whether I'm posting up pictures, it could be to my entire team. Maybe it's just my leaders. Maybe it's to leaders above me who are like my leaders, not just leaders that I oversee on my team. But really that accountability aspect too, right? If I'm doing that consistently, I know that if I'm not going to do that and I skip a day, I know that they're going to notice that, whether they say something or not. So it's like a reverse psychology thing, because at the same time, when I'm trying to motivate and inspire them, maybe to some people who aren't as consistent with the MBS, it holds me accountable at the same time too. So it works reverse ways too.
I love that. No, Sean and Zach, we're definitely going to have to tap in. This is beautiful. This is beautiful. I love that.
So yeah, and Zach or Yinka, I definitely agree too. It's from what Nick's explained to me, even since he's been involved with the business and how it's transformed his life, it's definitely something that we can even tie in FLI as we grow our leadership team and we start to bring on more people underneath us to further the culture. And I think it go hand in hand with EOS and how we're putting that together. Now, kind of on the EOS side of things, Nick, have you guys used EOS? Do you know what EOS is?
I'm not familiar with EOS.
Okay. So basically, EOS is called the entrepreneurial operating system, and it's, to put it simply, it's a way to delegate and elevate. And it's something that we're going through in the early stages with FLI now. But in my full-time job at Air Control Products, we're about 2 years into it, to the point where the leadership team has knocked everything out on their end, and they're starting to step it down to the I guess call ourselves the normal employees that aren't at that leadership level just yet. So seeing it from different aspects and even reading the book Traction has been very helpful, because it allows us to focus on the important tasks or focus on the rocks like Yinka talked about. But I'm seeing a lot of similarities between EOS and MBS, because the goal of the system is the same. It's to build a cohesive unit, a cohesive culture that can be scaled down to the people that you're leading. And I guess, what, along with Maxwell's 5 levels of leadership, what are some of your other favorite leadership books?
I mean, literally any leadership book by Maxwell. Like I know he has a lot of leadership books, but any Maxwell leadership book. But just kind of backtracking, I want to backtrack here for a second, Sean. What you were talking with EOS, I think without knowing what EOS was, in a way, we kind of use that, because I mean, there's several different leadership levels within our organization, and the higher up that you go in your leadership level, the more responsibilities you're going to have, the more things that you have to take care of. But a lot of times before somebody ever even gets promoted, and this is something that we talk about within the organization, is you have to act like the first level of leadership within our organization is what's called a supervising agent. So a lot of times, if somebody's looking to get promoted into a leadership position, we'll tell them you almost have to take on those responsibilities as though you're already a supervising agent. So before you're even promoted, or it's just a title. There's nothing saying that you can't already have those responsibilities, or you can't take ownership of those responsibilities before you're even there. Because by the time you get the promotion, there's not as much of a learning curve, right? You just keep on sprinting. You don't have to break stride at all at that point. So indirectly, I think we kind of use EOS almost without even, that's the first time I've heard of EOS though. So I love it.
And I know exactly where you're coming from as I'm reading the 5 levels of leadership. And it's like level 1 is leadership by position. But in order to be good at, getting past level 1 into level 2, you almost have to assume that leadership role before you're given the title. So you have to work it in the inverse. Because if you show leadership qualities, and knowing Nick since elementary school and into high school, I could see that he showed leadership qualities early on before he was even given a leadership position. And people like that, you could spend 10 minutes with him. You're like, okay, this person has leadership qualities, and people naturally gravitate towards them. So that really makes stepping up into multiple leadership levels easy. So kind of, I guess, as we wrap up here, Zach and Yinka, do you have any more questions before we kind of get to our last round?
Yeah, you've answered most of my questions, Nick. We've covered some great topics. Yinka, what do you got?
Yeah, I got 2 questions, and the second question might open up another short can of worms. The first one is, in terms of leadership, right? All of us are leaders on this call right now. But for those who, since we are leaders, and I just want to get your input, when you're trying to lead and you're seeing someone who's not necessarily catching on or is having a bad day, again, but they're not in management, they're not leaders themselves, because it sounds like a lot of your group, or your group me, if I'm not mistaken, is maybe comprised of leaders. But for someone who's not catching on or is going through a rough patch, what are your best techniques to get someone back onto the right track as a good leader?
Yeah, so I think when it comes to leadership, and really this is with anything, is it's going to take time. A lot of leadership, becoming a successful leader, is you're going to have to go through different experiences to make you a better leader, right? You're going to fail. Like I failed a lot of times as a leader early on in my career, but ultimately that's what developed me and made me a better leader. Now, one thing that you can do to shortcut or fast track becoming a better leader is to study the greats, right? Studying leadership books. John Maxwell, anybody getting into leadership, you have to understand the 5 levels to leadership. You can study great coaches. Nick Saban, he's a great leader, right? These individuals who lead big organizations, successful organizations, and that's another thing that I learned within my organization. The leaders above me, a lot of them I've learned that they study great coaches in sports organizations. And you can really, whether it's an interview, whether it's an article with quotes from them, you can really kind of break down and decipher like their mentality or their thought process going into a game. And a lot of that stuff translates into the business side of things too. So the biggest thing for somebody who's maybe struggling or not having that success is early on is you just got to take the time, dive in, study, really break down and focus on implementing certain things early on in your career. But at the end of the day, you're still going to have to go through experiences. There's going to be trials and tribulations that you're going to have to go through. But ultimately, you're going to grow up, right? We heard this. We're going to grow. You got to grow up at some point. We heard this when we were little kids. You're going to grow up as a leader too. And a lot of that's just going through the different experiences with your people.
No, I love that. That's so true. That's so true. I love that. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say real quick, because I know you have another question.
Yeah.
Is another thing that I've learned over the years too is how I lead person 1 could be completely different from person 2.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I failed at quite a bit, is I tried to lead everybody the same on my team early on.
Yeah.
And not everybody needs the same coaching. Not everybody is motivated by the same thing, or not everybody learns the same way. So again, going back to the 5 levels of leadership, you have to build that relationship with your people and really understand, okay, what motivates this person? What drives them? What are they looking to get out of this? And ultimately from there, that's where you can really break down what route you got to take with that individual.
Yeah, no, I can relate to that. That is so true. Everybody has different learning styles, and you have to kind of adapt as a great leader, and I love that. And one little tidbit before I even get to my second question, it's funny you guys are mentioning so many Maxwell books. Not only have I not tapped into that, I'm going to. I just added a couple of those to my list, or I will, I should say. Is that when I was in Miami, just a little quick sidetrack. When I was in Miami, it's so funny when I took the Uber or an Uber from the airport to my hotel. Kid you not, the Uber picked me up. Awesome guy. His name is Tyler. Didn't catch his last name, but I got his number and I've been texting him a little bit. He works directly with Maxwell. Kid you not. I kid you not. Yeah. What are the odds? I'm not even joking. So that would be like a fire guy to bring onto this podcast. And while I was in Miami, this one girl who actually just secured for one of our next podcasts, shout out to Anania. She actually works with Tony Robbins. I kid you not, guys. The plugs are insane. So talking about leadership, we are just like Nick. We are very much excited to bring some more, upcoming powerful, people who are in this great leadership space. And I appreciate you guys, putting me on with some books. But again, a little sidetrack there. That's again some future podcasts to come. But again, now my second question, which kind of pivots, is you mentioned in the beginning you were actually also recently in Miami. You said you were shooting content. Can you talk about that? Is that like a personal endeavor, personal business, or is that for work? What do you mean shooting content? I'm interested as a content creator.
Absolutely. So we this is actually the third year that we did it. Every second quarter for the team, we call it a mansion trip, and we take our top 4 rookie producers and our top 4 veteran producers, all expense paid trip. We rented out like a $5 or $6 million mansion down in Fort Lauderdale for Wednesday through Saturday, like 4-day, 3-night trip. We paid for all the food, paid for all the drinks. We took them out. We had a private dinner event we took them to, custom made. We had Friday was the yacht day, rented a Lambo. So really just like not only rewarding these individuals for the hard work that they put in, but at the same time, just showing them what's possible, showing them the lifestyle that you almost dream of coming up. But at the same time, it's like, you still got to remain humble and like realize that stuff's really it's not impossible to reach. So just giving these people the reality of, like I said, I've only been here 5 years. I don't necessarily consider myself successful, but it's within reach. So really just trying to share that opportunity, and ultimately at the end of the day, just reward those individuals who worked hard the entire second quarter. We do that contest for them every year, and also want to capture the content from it. And we use that for recruiting purposes as well.
I love that. What you just talked about embodies what I actually just experienced. I know Sean's kind of smiling because you and maybe Zach, you guys saw it a little bit on the Instagram, is that, I was just at a male development retreat or celebration or experience, one might call it. And essentially it's like, if you guys can, all these males, all these men, great men. I know Sean's in this group and hopefully Zach's joining soon as well. If you continue on the path that you're going, you will attain everything that's in this weekend. There was a yacht party. There was a pool party. There was a mansion party. There was a photo shoot. There were seminars, all these kinds of things. And it's like the life of a 1% man or 1% individual, assuming you put in this kind of work, but it's not unattainable, assuming you continue on this track, if not propel on the track that you're on. It's so true. And you use that as motivation. So I'm so happy you guys are, capturing that content and showing other people, guys, like, it's not out of reach. You can do this. I love that. It's beautiful.
And this may be for a different episode too, but I think sometimes, especially with our generation, sometimes that's why individuals or certain people might think that stuff's out of reach, is because people don't realize like short-term sacrifice creates long-term opportunity. So when I started out early on in the sales industry, it was like, there were some parties I missed. There were some family get-togethers I missed.
Wow.
There was some early mornings, some late nights. Yeah, the stuff sucked. But guess what? Ultimately, that's what's going to get you further ahead and get you the stuff that you want long-term. So that was my mentality, is I knew by the time I was married, by the time I had kids, I want to have the option on whether or not that I have to go to work. My bills are still paid. But if I want to pay for better education, if I want to go see their sports games, or if I want to take the family on a vacation, I want to have those options in the future. So I knew it was going to take some short-term sacrifice early on in my younger years. And ultimately, that's what's going to get you the opportunity in your older years.
100%. That the epitome of delayed gratification. You do what others aren't doing now, so you can do what others aren't doing later.
Yep.
100%. I love that.
Exactly. And I think the two biggest takeaways that we can have from this conversation we just had is, number one, no matter your situation, no matter your age, no matter your education, this stuff is possible and this stuff is attainable. You know, you look at kind of all four of our situations, they're all different. We all got to where we're at by a different track. And that goes to say that there's not one specific method or track that's going to get you where you need to get to. You got to understand that you kind of follow your own path. Like Nick says, everything happens for a reason. You can't let negative situations hold you down or make you feel like your life is over, everything's ruined. There's a way that you can work through, and the way that you can work through is through having that mentality and believing in it every day and starting every day off on the right note. Whether you get rid of the hardest thing first or you get rid of the easiest thing first. Like this is all attainable. And then on the leadership side as well, as long as you follow people that are ahead of you, you know, those people that are your leaders or even people that are famous leaders, if you learn from them, if you read their books, you watch their videos, or you have the opportunity to talk to them, you know, gaining that knowledge from these people is going to set you far apart from anybody who's just like, you know, if it happens, it happens. I'm comfortable. And comfort is the biggest enemy of anyone who wants to be successful. Like you can never be comfortable. So I have kind of three more questions that I want to ask you, Nick, and these are like answer these as I guess in say about a minute or so. But
Okay.
these are kind of similar to questions that we ask every guest when we wrap up. So question number one, if you had to list two books that anybody needs to read, whether they're business books, leadership books, real estate books, finance books, anything like that, what would those two books be?
Try and think of something maybe not as common. I know we already talked about 5 levels of leadership. I know there's probably some very common books out there that you guys all know of. One thing or one book that I would recommend, it's actually a very short book, very impactful, especially for a lot of young men out there. I don't know if any of you guys have read As a Man Thinketh by James Allen.
Ooh, I have not, but I love male development books. Talk to me.
It's a short read, but I'm telling you, it will grow you, it will challenge you, and it will really turn the way that you're able to think as a young man. And I'm telling you, it's a game changer. As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. The other leadership book that I would recommend in terms of going back to John Maxwell is the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, right? At first, you got to know the 5 levels, but at the same time, the second book that I recommend by John Maxwell will be 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership.
Awesome. I
noted.
will add those to the list.
Yeah.
All right. Question number 2. For say either the rest of 2022 or the next year in total, what is your number one goal?
Number 1?
Yes, no, top of the list. What you see and think of every single day when you wake up.
So for our company, right? Like I said, I got to kind of break this down real quick. Because I told you guys the companies all throughout the US, Canada, New Zealand, and there's different agencies within the company. So everybody on here probably knows the NFL. The NFL is one organization. Each team is individually owned by different people or different organizations. Those agencies are owned by different people within our company, but it's all under the same company. So out of all these agencies, they pretty much rank everybody kind of like maybe the NFL, and then you've got your AIL, or not AIL, but you've got like the semi-pro leagues almost. So they'll take all the leadership categories, your top producers, your rookie producers, and they'll rank everybody. My goal is to be number 1 in my category as a leader this year, which means next year we have a annual company convention. Next year it's going to be in Cancun, Mexico. So my goal is to be number 1 in my category as a leader, and that way I'll be able to walk on stage for the company convention next year.
Number 1, I dig it. Hey, and now that you've spoken it into existence, it has to happen.
It's happening.
It's going to. Yep. Yes, sir.
Which on a side note, anytime you have goals, you need to tell them to people, because if you don't tell them, no one's going to hold you accountable. So the more people you tell your goals, you tell your ambitions, they're going to ask you in like 6 months, hey, didn't you say you were going to do this? And then you're going to be like, okay, I got to get this done. So
part of the, not to cut you off, but part of the MBS, affirmations, daily affirmations, speaking things into existence. That's a real thing. All my daily affirmations have come true at one point or another. So whatever your goals are, if you're not doing it right now, whatever you want to work towards, write it down every single day. It's going to keep it in front of you, and it's going to keep you working towards that.
I feel you 100%. As I look above my computer right now, I have my 2022 goals sitting there, and I can just go through and see which ones I've already checked off and which ones I still have to go. So, yes, I agree completely. Write down your goals, tell people about them.
I love it.
All right, last question. I want you to dig deep for this one. What would you say is your purpose in life?
Purpose in life. That's a great question. And to be honest with you, before I dive into what it currently is, I think it's changed over time. Right? My purpose when I first started with the company, completely different from where my purpose is right now.
Okay.
I think where I get the most purpose and where a lot of my purpose day to day, week to week, month to month comes from right now is the individuals that I'm surrounded by, right? People above me, people that have been with me since I've started in this organization. Like we've talked about, it's completely changed my life 360, not only in the business side, but like personally. Like I've learned if you need something personally, like anybody in the organization's there. It's not your typical 9-to-5 job where if it's not work related, they're not really caring. And I've just the way that it's been able to change and impact my life, not only professionally, but personally, my purpose comes from really trying to do like have that same impact on other individuals. Like I have a lot of young individuals on my team right now, and some are in college, some were graduated from college, some college dropouts, some never went to college, like all different backgrounds, some prior experience, some no experience. And I think it's just seeing somebody from where you first meet them at, whatever personally, professionally, whatever the case is, but seeing where somebody starts at when you first meet them and working with them, developing them, challenging them on a day-to-day basis, and really just helping them, whatever their goals are. This goes back to leadership. Everybody has different goals, and it's not going to take the same thing for person A effort-wise as it may take for person B to hit their goal. So I have to really work with my individuals based off of what their goals are and help them work towards those goals and be able to develop the skill set and the knowledge that they need to be able to accomplish those goals. And as we hit milestones, ultimately, I know at this point in my career, the more people I help reach their goals, ultimately, the more goals I'll be able to reach personally. So that's really where my purpose has changed over the years, is really just taking these individuals that come into the organization brand new and just being able to impact their lives, not only professionally, but also on a personal day-to-day basis.
Absolutely. You're paying it forward on both a business and a personal level.
Yep.
I love it.
I love that.
So, okay, Nick, now let me ask you this. Where can people find you on social media, on the internet? How can they get in contact with you if they want to know more about you, they want to know more about the business, or they just want to talk?
You can find me on Instagram at ChumaNick16. That's CHUMANICK 16. That's my username or tag, whatever you want to call it, on Instagram. Facebook, you can find me at Nick Chuma. Again, same thing. Snapchat's probably on my Instagram. Aside from that, you can search Nick Chuma on LinkedIn. Last name's going to be the hardest part for you, CHUMA. You'll be able to find me on there.
I love it. Absolutely. Go hit them up, give them a follow. Yinka, where can everyone find you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn at Olayinka Famadu, first name Olayinka, Famadu, Famodu.
Absolutely. Zach, how about you?
LinkedIn, ZON22, or under the Financial Literacy Institute. Same thing for Instagram.
Absolutely. And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at SeanLacey7, and then on LinkedIn at Sean Lacey. Make sure you check out thefli.net online, as well as our YouTube channel. Check our podcast out on Spotify, and we're on TikTok as well. I believe, what are we? The FLI LLC or
Yeah,
FLI?
FLI.LLC, yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, make sure you check us out on social media. Listen to this episode. We had a great time talking to Nick today. I mean, MBS, you got to live it to understand it. And
Yeah.
I think it'll make a tremendous impact on anyone that wants to put in the time and focus to welcome it into their lives. And then you'll find yourself welcoming it into other people's lives too. the more that we can share with others, like Nick said, you got to pay it forward and live your life based on your own purpose. Take what Nick said, his purposes, into account. But I mean, a great episode, guys. Does anyone else have any closing remarks?
No, consistency is key. Consistency. Yeah. Just like the gym, you can't see results after a day, a week, a month. Be consistent at it, and I promise over time the results will come.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Nick. We appreciate you.
Yep. Thanks for your time,
guys.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nick. Make sure you check this episode out and check out our future episodes. We got more heat coming. Y'all have a great night.
Let's go.